Here's what nobody tells you about high-performing teams. Most teams don't fail because of bad people. They don't fail because of weak leadership or low morale, the things that every leadership book tells you to fix. Most teams fail for the most fundamental reason. Everyone on the team is using the same words, but nobody agrees on what they mean. Done, urgent, good enough, accountable. These words show up in every meeting, every handoff, and every performance review. And in most teams, especially in manufacturing, every person in the room has a different definition. But no one notices because the words sound the same coming from each person. What's the gap? Between shared vocabulary and shared understanding. This is where high-performing teams die before they ever get started. I learned this the hard way. 30 years in manufacturing, running plants, managing shifts, hitting targets under conditions that don't wait for you to be aligned. And I can tell you exactly when this hit me. I was standing in a production meeting looking at a missed deadline, and 3 people in the room had 3 completely different definitions on time. All of them were technically right, yet none of them agreed. It had been costing us thousands of dollars a week for months, invisibly, because nobody thought to ask the question. So in this video, I'm going to give you the framework that I use to build alignment from the ground up. I call it the shared definitions method. This includes 4 words that every team needs to define together before they can perform together. And by the end, I'm going to give you a diagnostic question that will expose whether your team is actually aligned or just using the same vocabulary to describe completely different realities. Let's start with why alignment fails. In manufacturing, we're obsessed with clear communication. We have policies, we have checklists, we have standard work, we even have shift handoff logs. On paper, we are the most documented industry on the planet. And yet, every plant manager I've ever worked with has the same version of the story. We had a procedure for that. Everyone knew the procedure, and it still went wrong. Here's why. Procedures tell people what to do. They don't tell people what success looks like. And when people don't share a definition of success, they follow the procedure perfectly and still produce different outcomes. Then they blame each other. Trust erodes, and now you have a team that's technically following the process and still underperforming. I call this the alignment cliff. It works like this. When a team first forms, there's a brief window where everyone assumes they're on the same page. They use the same language, they nod in agreement at meetings, everything feels aligned. Then the work starts, and the small gaps start to appear. Someone delivers something done that the recipient considers unfinished. Someone treats the request as urgent that the requester considered routine. And someone is held accountable for something they didn't realize they owned. Each of these moments is a tiny cliff that the team falls off, and most leaders respond by adding more process, more meetings, more checklists, more clarity of what to do. But the problem was never what, it was the definition underneath. The shared definitions method is designed to solve this. There are 4 words, and I'm going to warn you, they sound obvious, and you might be tempted to skip past them. Don't do that. There are 4 words that cost you money, undefined. There are 4 words your team argues about without realizing it. Until you align on them together, your team will never perform at the ceiling. Word 1 is done. And I'm starting with this one because it's the most expensive, undefined word in any operation. When one person says something is done, what do they mean? For an engineer, done might mean the design is complete and ready for review. For a production supervisor, done might mean the product is off the line and into the warehouse. For a maintenance tech, done means the machine is back online and running to spec. Same word, 3 different realities. I once worked with a plant where the engineering team and the operations team had been at odds for years over the word done. Engineering would hand off the new process and say it was all done, meaning the design was finalized. Operations would receive it, try to run it, discover issues, and conclude that engineering had handed them something unfinished. Engineering felt disrespected, and operations felt like they were set up to fail. Both were right by their definitions. The fix was embarrassingly simple. We created a shared definition of what done meant, and they agreed on it. The process is done when it's been running at target for 3 consecutive shifts without engineering support. That definition included the operational standard, not just the design standard. Once both teams had the same finish line, the conflict evaporated. Here's the tactical move. Get your team in a room and ask, when we say something is done, what do we mean? Specifically, measurably, in a way that someone outside the room could verify. Write the answer down, post it up, and use it. Every time a project, a task, or a handoff is declared done, test it against the definition. If it doesn't meet the standard, it's not done. Not because someone failed, because the definition wasn't met. Definition failure versus personal failure. That's what keeps teams aligned instead of defensive. Word 2 is urgent, and this one is special in manufacturing because everything feels urgent when you're on the floor. The problem with urgent as an undefined word is that it becomes competition. Whoever shouts the loudest, whoever has the most seniority, whoever has the scariest consequence, they win. Urgent becomes a power dynamic instead of a shared standard. And when urgency is the power dynamic, the actual most urgent things get buried under the things that are simplest and best advocated. I once watched a maintenance team burn 3 hours of urgent repair that wasn't urgent at all. The requesting supervisor had just learned that the best way to get maintenance attention was to use the word urgent in every request. Meanwhile, a genuinely urgent issue on a different line sat untouched for 2 shifts because the supervisor there was too polite to push. Here's a definition that fixed it. We created 3 urgency levels, and I'm going to give them to you directly because you can implement these today. Level 1, line down. Production is stopped. Safety is at risk. Respond immediately. Level 2, at risk. Production is running, but the known issue will cause downtime within the shift if not addressed. Level 3, improvement. This is worth doing, but doesn't affect current production. The key was that only certain people could declare level 1, and anyone who declared it had to be the person whose line was actually down. You couldn't declare a level 1 for someone else's problem. That single rule eliminated the urgent inflation immediately because you lost credibility if you cried wolf. The tactical move here? Define your urgency levels, not high, medium, low. That's a little bit too vague. Define them by the consequence and the time. What happens if this isn't addressed in the next hour, the next shift, or the next week? If the answer changes, the urgency changes too, and everyone needs to agree on what that answer means. I built a full team alignment toolkit around this method. The 4 shared definitions plus the exercise I use with leadership teams to implement them. If you want it, the link is in the description below. And now on to word 3, good enough. And manufacturing leaders usually flinch when I say this because good enough sounds like we're lowering our standards. And it's not. It's defining them. Here's the reality in any operational environment. You cannot pursue perfection on every dimension simultaneously. You cannot maximize speed, quality, cost effectiveness, and safety all at the same time. Trade-offs exist. The question is whether you're making those trade-offs deliberately with a shared standard, or maybe accidentally with each person making their own call in the moment. When good enough is undefined, you get 2 problems. Problem number 1, people who over-deliver on things that don't matter. They polish, they perfect, they add features that nobody asked for, and they burn time and resources that operation needs elsewhere. Problem number 2, people who under-deliver on things that do matter because they treat every dimension as equally important and they run out of capacity. I had a quality inspector early in my career who was a perfectionist, genuinely excellent at her job, but she was holding shipments for cosmetic issues that customers had never complained about. Was she wrong? By her definition of good enough, well, no. But by the business's definition, yes. The problem wasn't her. The problem was that nobody had defined the line of what was good enough. The tactical move here is for any recurring deliverable or process, define not just what good looks like, but what good enough looks like and what not good enough looks like. 3 tiers. Good enough is the minimum acceptable standard that still meets the customer's actual needs. Good is above that. Better than required is continuous improvement and a good reason to be proud. Not good enough is below the line and triggers a specific response. The power of this isn't the tiers themselves. It's the team defining them together. When your team has argued about what good enough means and they reached a shared conclusion, they don't need you to enforce the standard. They enforce it themselves because they actually built it. Word number 4 is accountable. And this is the one that cuts deepest because in most organizations, accountability is code for who gets blamed when something goes wrong. And that's not accountability. That's punishment with better branding. Real accountability, the kind that high-performing teams build together, the clear alignment of ownership before the work starts, not the assignment of blame when it all fails. In manufacturing, I see this mistake constantly. Projects go sideways and leaders say, well, we need more accountability around here. What they usually mean is, I want to know who to discipline. What they should mean is, we need clear ownership before we even begin. Here's the shared definition of accountability I've used with every team that I've led. Accountability means you are the person who raises the flag before the problem becomes a crisis. You are the person who owns the outcome, not just the activity. And you are the person who commits to the specific result in a specific time. And you communicate early if that commitment is at risk. Notice what's not in the definition. Punishment, blame, consequences. Those things might exist, but they're not in the definition. The definition is about ownership, communication, and commitment. The tactical move here? For every single project or deliverable, ask 2 questions in front of the team. Number 1, who owns the outcome? Not the task list, not the process. The outcome. Number 2, what is the earliest signal that this is off track and who will raise it? The second question is the one most teams skip. It means you're not waiting for the deadline to discover the failure. You're building a system where accountability means early visibility, not late blame. All right, the shared definitions method. 4 words that make or break teams. Word number 1, done. Define it measurably. Test every completion against the definition. If it doesn't meet the standard, it's not done. It's a definition gap, not a personal failure. Word number 2, urgent. Define it by consequences and time, not by who's shouting. Create levels tied to operational impact. The person with the scariest story doesn't win here. The person with the most at risk wins. Word number 3 is good enough. Define the minimum acceptable standard that still meets actual customer needs. Not perfection on everything. Not last minute corner cutting. A deliberate shared line that everyone knows. Word number 4, accountable. Ownership assigned before the work, not blame assigned after. The person who raises the flag early owns the outcome and communicates when commitments are at risk. Now, here's a diagnostic question, I promise. Look at your team. Pick any recurring friction point. A handoff that's always tense, a deliverable that's always late, a meeting where the same argument happens every single week. Then ask yourself, if everyone in that conversation defined done, urgent, good enough, and accountable the exact same way, would that friction still exist? If the honest answer is no, and it almost always is, then you don't have a problem with people. You don't have a motivation problem. You have a definitions problem. And definitions problem are the cheapest problems to fix. You just have to notice them. I spent 30 years in manufacturing, and the highest performing teams I've ever seen weren't the ones with the smartest people and the best processes. They were the ones that took the time to align on what these words actually mean. The full shared definitions method worksheet with the alignment exercises I use with leadership teams is in the description. So drop a comment. Which one of the 4 words is causing the most friction on your team right now? I read every comment, and if you like our content, reach out to us for a free clarity session to see how we can help your team knock it out of the park.